What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you. You know, if you haven't been watching, I stream Access Football just about 3 times a week now. I love this franchise mode. Gameplay isn't there yet for me, but the franchise mode, really impressed with the depth. And I'm going to go into a couple situations as to why, because the intriguing thing to me is this is not a game that has to shove in my face, here's a storyline, Ryan. Here's depth that we've put in the game. Instead, it's made by people that love football, and it's programmed by people that want a good experience too. So I'm going to go through just a couple things that happened the first 6 seasons here, and I'm going to correlate them to what's actually happened with my favorite team, the Indianapolis Colts. I drafted a defensive back, and I thought he was going to be the savior of my secondary. He was a first-round pick. We're going to call him Mike Doss, because after a few seasons, he barely could make the starting rotation. In fact, I'm not going to re-sign him when his contract comes up. Now, there was another player I drafted in the 6th round, an afterthought. Had some decent attributes, but really didn't feel like he was going to contribute. But he has become one of the biggest presences we have on defense. He's became a player that we can depend on, that is constantly able to start on our secondary. We're going to call him Antoine Bethea. We had a player, an offensive lineman, that we drafted pretty high. We thought this guy was going to be the stalwart of our line. We thought this player was going to be a solid lineman. And don't get me wrong, he is. But there's one problem. He can't stay healthy. 3 of the first 4 seasons he played, he was injured. Now, when he played, he made a real difference. But he just couldn't stay healthy. And we had to make a decision whether to sign him or to let him go. We're going to call him Bob Sanders. Now, the other thing that really took me back in terms of how this game operates, we made a trade. One of the first trades we made. Okay, we let one of our better players go. We're going to call him Mike Peterson. And we watched Mike Peterson go and thrive on the team we traded him to for a very long time. In fact, multiple seasons. He's still one of the best linebackers in the league. And in return, we got a player that is very much below our standard, that actually can't even start. We're going to call him Trent Richardson. Now, there's some other situations that have came up that really don't mirror things that have happened with the Indianapolis Colts, but I'll run them through for you. We had a quarterback that we drafted to ultimately be our starter. We let him play a backup role. We brought him into some games late. And we thought that we'd finally got him to the position where he could start. And at the end of the season, we realized he had progressed to the point that he was actually better than our starting quarterback. And when it came time to give him a contract, the quarterback realized his own value and asked for a 2-year, $20 million deal, which was more money and a lesser contract than his actual player that he was replacing, the starter. And we had to release him because he knew his value. He wouldn't take a pay cut, and he wouldn't take a long-term deal. We had another defensive player that we went to negotiate a contract with. And because he was older, we decided to go back and look at the roster, just to make sure, do we really need this aging defensive lineman? And when we went back in to negotiate a contract, he was willing to take a pay cut. Because the game understands that I went in and looked at his salary, and then I went out and looked at the roster. And I decided to go ahead and keep him on the team for that veteran presence, for that leadership. That's just a little bit of what this game has done. And I stress to you, this isn't the game coming out and telling me, you had a first-round player that bust. You actually drafted a gem in the 6th round of the draft. You kind of got fleeced on this trade. It's not giving me pop-ups. It's not holding my hand. It's not telling me what's happening. It's not forcing storylines in me. It's not even giving me storylines. It's not manufacturing what happens in a football franchise. It's certainly not telling me that when I upgraded my team's facilities, that my player morale went up and it made my team play better. Or that my players' chance of injuries went down because after I made that giant financial commitment, we didn't have an injury for an entire season. Now, maybe that's not super realistic, but the reality is we did have injuries the year after. So I can play a game that has a franchise mode that seems to respect me as a gamer. That I can sit down and look at things like player progression, contract negotiations, and understand that not everything is going to turn out perfect. But it's nice to know that there's a variation in terms of what happens. And that's why I look forward to playing this game 30 minutes a season. That's why I can actually enjoy this game and not once take this game on field. Because I know there's more to a football franchise than just graphics. I want the substance behind it, and hopefully when the gameplay gets to where it needs to be for me to enjoy that aspect of it, they'll have built on this franchise more to where I can enjoy it even more. But if you haven't watched these episodes, do yourself a favor. Go watch one or two of them and ask yourself, is Madden providing you this experience? Because if I can get this experience from a game with players I have no emotional connection to, I don't know any of these players, they're all created players, they're all fictional players. I can't relate it to a real player. I can't say, well, this is the quarterback Andrew Luck. This is the quarterback Peyton Manning. I don't have that built-in ideology of who they are. I simply have to look at what's going on, and naturally, the storylines come through in terms of how the players act. Not with pop-up dialogue, by just letting a franchise play out, grow, and evolve. Love to know your guys' thoughts on this. Appreciate you checking it out. I will be back in the week with more content.